All right, we have a special and very timely guest for us today. Originally hailing from Australia's Sunshine Coast, he relocated to Currumbin when he was 14 and was immediately identified as one of the more potential-filled cogs in the Gold Coast surfing machine. And let me tell you, around this time, there were a lot of cogs all toiling away in the very long shadows cast by the likes of Mick Fanning, Joel Parkinson, Dean Morrison, B. Durbridge, and others. A stellar junior career alongside the likes of two-time world junior champion Jack Freestone. He qualified for the Big Show for the CT in 2014, and despite burning bright for one special season, especially in your debut event at Snapper Rocks, which we will get to in a bit, he moved on to other avenues of professional surfing and then beyond that for a bit. Today, however, we are speaking to him from his new home of the past year in the Middle East, where he is serving as the senior director of the surfing experience at Surf Abu Dhabi. We have the one and only Mitch Cruz. Mitch, good morning. Sabahul Hayy. Thank you for coming on the lineup today.
Yeah, good morning. I was a bit behind this morning. Obviously, all the crew rolling into town, and it's been a crazy week, but yeah, I'll give you a little peek. We're just sitting by the pool before the madness begins. But thanks for having me, mate.
Well, we were talking about, of course, man. As I was saying, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. The fact that we have the Surf Abu Dhabi Pro happening this weekend, this episode will drop just before it, gave me the perfect excuse to talk to you. But we were catching up just before the podcast started for a bit. You mentioned a little bit how surreal it is having the tour come to your current home. And, for someone who toured for so long, it is one of those adjustments you go through when you stop traveling full time. It's well, that was kind of my road family. That was my circus family. And it must feel like a little bit of a reunion for you.
Oh, absolutely. I've been here for just over a year now. The first year I was kind of hiding out in this pond in the desert. We were keeping it pretty tight-lipped, and I kind of, took myself away from the surf world for, that period of time. So, we spend every day in this facility and surfing the wave last year, and just seeing everyone kind of come through the doors is just sort of quite strange, but it is that reunion type feeling, and a bunch of high fives and good vibes, and mostly just seeing everyone just pumped on the wave and just destroying the wave, to be honest. Everyone's just all jet lagged and cooked from their flights from Pipe, but they're still just rolling into wave one and just destroying it. So yeah, it's been an awesome week, and a really surreal moment running the first kind of big event in the UAE. It's a special thing.
For sure. You talked about hiding out in the desert for a little over a year now. Talk us through, and for the listeners for sure, what exactly is your role and what do you get up to out there?
Yeah, so basically, and for anyone that hasn't been to Surf Abu Dhabi, it's the first Kelly Slater wave pool technology here that you can book to the public. My role is the senior director of surf experience, which is basically I take care of the entire surf team and the surf operation, from the water safety, the guest services, the surf guides, the coaches, and we take people on surf trips in this amazing, perfect wave pool, and not to mention this, jaw-dropping kind of facility. So that's basically been my role, is to build the team from scratch and work on an authentic kind of guest experience, and now take people on a surf trip that is slightly different to what a common surf trip might be. So we're only early days for us, but the first 3 months has been insane, just seeing people just minds blown, and that's sort of been the bulk of what I've been doing out here.
I'd imagine too, with your background and across a bunch of different dimensions within the surfing world, but certainly your ability to perform at the very highest level on the championship tour, have you had a big hand in kind of dialing in the wave and the wave profiles and giving the engineers that kind of feedback? Is that something that you get up to as well?
Absolutely. That's the coolest part of the job. I'm testing in the field, they say. Um, yeah, we worked quite closely with the Kelly Slater Waveco team, the science team, which is, Adam Fincham and a few of the brains there. And then we got like James Matthews and Carniella from the ranch. And basically they kind of, obviously they've walked the walk. So we kind of learnt from them. And I guess my role is to just kind of give feedback on what is in a performance wave, and especially not just working on like the profiles for the event, more working on just the wave characteristics for all of our 6 wave settings that are for the guests, and what is a perfect wave, I guess, for each ability level. So there's quite a bit of work in it, and it's very interesting, and it's a rabbit hole. I never would have thought I'd be in a position where I would complain about a wave not barreling me enough. It was something so strange, but it's been an awesome thing to be a part of, and learning from the brains that built this thing has just been insane. So a really cool perk to the job, I guess.
Yeah, I'll say for sure. And one of those things that you talked about, how there's different profiles for different skill levels. Obviously, with the Surf Abu Dhabi Pro coming up, you've got the world's best surfers. Can you describe kind of the wave that they're going to be competing on? And we've had a few events at Lemoore. People have seen that wave, the right, the left, and I think the performances on it have actually gotten better year over year. But is there any difference between the Surf Abu Dhabi kind of elite level wave and Lemoore?
There are a lot of differences. For one, we're a saltwater pool. We're the only one in the world at the moment. That makes a world of difference on your equipment. The wave feels like it's got that real ocean-like energy. With that being said, with those ocean kind of like characteristics, we have its imperfections. And where we are, we're positioned, the pool's positioned on the edge of the Arabian Gulf by the sea. So we have we're exposed to wind, and we've got little bits and bobs that can kind of pop up on certain wind types where it's onshore, but these guys just use it to their advantage and pop airs off it and do, high performance maneuvers. But all in all, the wave from top to bottom it's basically like what you would ask for in a full performance wave, I believe. The performance section 1 will give you a couple, critical turns. You're going to drop into the middle barrel, which is, we've seen that all-star middle barrels, very similar to the ranch. You could sit in it for like 12 seconds. But I think a lot of the surfers are really going to be focusing on kind of performance section number 2, which is after that middle barrel, which will just be like where I guess the scores will be made or broken. And that's where you get 3 majors, and then you get into the inside bowl, which is kind of, for the men, a lot of the men I've seen is more of an air ramp rather than an end barrel but for the girls, they've been really like slotting into that slabby sort of end bowl. So all in all, very similar characteristics to the ranch, but I think the surfing will be different because of that real ocean-like energy and maybe some little slight crumbles on the sections that may, I think, allow for cooler maneuvers. So yeah, I'm proud of the wave, and I'm looking forward to, the surfing I've seen the past 2 days is just insane. So I'm sure people are just going to go mad.
It's interesting to hear you talk about just that like slight degrees of variance, because I wonder too, and you'll have to answer this because obviously I'm not at that level, but like psychologically, I wonder if that loosens surfers up to go even harder at the wave. It's almost like sometimes because, you know, all we're dealing with finite resources, even in sort of man-made waves. And sometimes if you're not getting a lot of waves or that it's almost too perfect a section, there's a little bit of conservatism that goes at it. But it's
absolutely.
like if you have a little degree of variance, like you could imagine surfers just being, oh, I'm going to hammer this section or whatever it is. Do you think, is that something you've noticed in the warm-up so far?
Oh, it's a hard one. Like these guys are surfing on such a high level and they deal with pressure so well. But just from my own experience, you're dead right. Like the wave is so long and it's so beautiful that you just don't want to push it hard and blow it. Like, But I think there's that comfortable. I guess it's like that moment where you feel everything aligns on a wave and you can settle in and you've got that confidence and nothing can kind of rattle you. I think some of the surfers kind of lock into gear. And I mean, once you get into rhythm on that first half of the wave, it's just turning the volume up. Once you see some surfers just feeling it and they're like, oh, here we go. And they really unleash in that back half of the wave. But, you know, it's like I said, these guys deal with pressure differently. They're just built different. So for me, I think, you know, once the rashies get put on, there will be that element of hesitation, but there'll be a select few that just, you know, the blinkers turn on and they're just going to go for broke.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about the pressure too, because that's come up in like quite a few like surfer advisory council sessions just on like CT tour design and like where are we going and why and the venues, et cetera. And, you know, I heard it articulated once really well where it was like each venue should be a world-class wave, but have like boil it down to one elite level challenge, you know, and like at Teahupu, it's like, you know, your positioning and your commitment to the drop, or at J-Bay, it's like your pace on the wave. And, you know, the thing about the wave system is everyone said, it's like, it is the most pressurized situation. And you really see different surfers sort of rise and fall in that because there is no excuse. You know, you're getting a world-class wave. You have the same opportunity as your competitor, and there's just nowhere to hide because you're not in the ocean. And I wonder if you've sort of felt that even outside of competing, just being at that system and obviously having your background as a CT surfer too.
Definitely. I mean, it's like, I think the wildest thing is just seeing this facility built and running an event in this arena-like setting. It's just so strange to me, but it almost feels like this is the shift, I guess, of where we're taking that step foot in a new direction of these wave pool events. And having, you know, we're talking about the pressures, I guess, like, this is the biggest pressure cooker environment you get when that thing's launching and you've got a bunch of people on land watching. Like here at Surf Abu Dhabi, we've got a restaurant here. We've got a beach club down the bottom of the pool. Then we've got a full, you know, big grassy patch area that's just like this closed off sort of, it's an arena basically. So this is as gnarly as it gets in terms of pressure. So, yeah, I mean, these guys, that's what makes them the best, is that they're just built for these spectacular moments and they just rise to the occasion. So I think, yeah, it's all a part of the entertainment from me now. Being on the outside, I'm just happy to watch. I mean, I would hate to be in that position. I'd be so terrified.
We've got the Lineup Podcast Mega Fantasy Clubhouse in the league this year. And so for all of our listeners out there, who have you seen up close and personal surf the wave that really impressed you? And, you know, maybe if you haven't seen anyone yet, is there anyone that in the back of your head, you're like, I really want to see how they surf the wave?
Oh man, like and this answers have changed over the past few weeks, obviously, since I've been here. Um, I mean, I ran out of my office to watch Felipe surf yesterday because I just was curious to see how it would go. And, Felipe did Felipe things. But, man, like, to be honest, someone that just completely just blew my mind was Mateus Hurdy. He just jumped
Mm.
on the wave and just greased two beautiful airs, linked the thing top to bottom. I mean, he was someone that sort of kind of caught me by surprise. Yago's been quietly doing some damage on the practice waves. I mean, look, all of the Brazilians are just, that when you talk about that aggression and balls to the wall approach, they just, they're lights out from the moment they take off. For the Aussie contingent, I mean, I've got to back my boys, Jack and Ethan. Ethan's basically the way I would dream to surf this wave, and then Jack's creativity has been pretty awesome. And then, I mean, yeah, and I don't want to take away from all the surfers. They've literally been ripping all of them. And then on the girls' side, I think, like, from the moment, I mean, these guys just arrived from pipe, so they're rubbing sleep out of their eyes and on weird time zones. And then I seen Joanne DeFay and Tatiana just jump in the pool straight off the plane and just blow the wave to pieces. So Joanne was amazing. Katie was amazing. Sawyer Lindbad last night was doing some crazy surfing. It's too hard to pick for me. I really don't know, and I think it's just going to be exciting.
We mentioned, your background and your relationship with a lot of these touring surfers. Have any of them come to you on the side for like little cheat codes or like, to put a little more juice on my waves or anything like that?
Yeah, I have. Obviously only if they ask. Like, these guys are so good, they got it dialed. But yeah, there are definitely little, things to know about the wave on where to exit the barrel and, positioning on turns, where to do what turn. There's certain moments where the wave presents critical sections, but, that section might not be that section where you need to push it. So just sharing little bits of things I've learned, definitely. Yeah, but a lot of the crew, they're pretty locked in, and I'll help when needed, but that they pick it up awfully quick.
Well, they're lucky to have you. The Surf Abu Dhabi Pro is going to be running February 14th through the 16th live on worldsurfleague.com and the WSL app. We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to wind the clock all the way back on Mitch Cruz. All right, we're back. This is the Lineup Podcast. I'm Dave Prodan here with Australia's Mitch Cruz, now residing in Abu Dhabi. He is the Senior Director for Surf Abu Dhabi. Mitch, I really appreciate your candid insights there in the first segment on the upcoming event there for the world's best surfers. But let's focus on what I actually want to talk to you about, which is you yourself. And let's give everyone a little bit of background. Born on the Sunshine Coast, raised there. What was early life like for you?
Yeah, if no one knows where the Sunshine Coast sort of is, it's the neighbouring kind of, I guess, city that's 2 hours north of Gold Coast, and some great surfers have come out of there. Julian Wilson, Parko was actually born on the Sunshine Coast. And I moved to the South Coast, New South Wales, down south of Sydney when I was about 8 years old. And I actually started surfing down there. And South Coast, New South Wales is known for its kind of slabs, and that's where all, Harry Bryant, Noah Dean go and, put out those crazy edits. So that's where I actually started surfing. I didn't start in Queensland. And then when I was 14, 15, my family moved back to the Gold Coast. And I guess that's where surfing really kind of went from me being a grommet and just running down the beach with a board to, okay, competing and rubbing shoulders with these little groms that are hungry, competitive animals, and that's where it just breeds that kind of surf careers, I guess. And that was me. So it was we were so fortunate. The Gold Coast is it's wonderland for a young kid and a surfer. We've got such an amazing bunch of waves and warm weather, great network of being able to run down Snapper Rocks and see Mick and Joel and all your heroes and surf with them and learn from them and see what they're doing. It was a really great upbringing for me, and I think that helped groom me into the surfer that I or the path that I had, sort of thing.
For sure. And even before you moved to the Gold Coast, when you were on the south coast of New South Wales, like, were you, I mean, I hesitate to say, like, as a young teenager, like a professional surfer, or were you aspiring to be? Did you have stickers on your board?
Oh, no.
Did you realize that you're okay? Or was that all
Yeah.
like you went to the Gold Coast and things changed?
No, yeah, I didn't at all have the intentions on. I just loved it. Just got bitten by the
Yeah.
snake basically as a kid. My friends did it. I did do board riders and did a few little events, and I got a couple little stickers from like surf shops and some surf brands that like kind of gave me, I don't know, a discount on clothes or whatever, which was still so cool for me. But when I moved to the Gold Coast and I I started school at Palm Beach Currumbin High School, which was we had a bunch of surfers come out of that school, Mick, Joel, all those guys, even like Dion Atkinson and even Paul Fisher and stuff like that all went to the school, and surfing was actually where you could be selected to do it as a subject. It's called sports excellence. And if you were kind of good enough, you could be a part of this program. And I got selected, and as I guess a teacher, our coach, for 2 periods of school was Phil McNamara. And if you don't know who Phil McNamara is, he was Mick Fanning's coach that took him to, 3 world titles. So he was our school teacher. So just naturally we had this sort of sensei figure just grooming us into these, competitive sort of machines and making us, really helping us improve our surfing without us even realizing it. So it was that really elevated everything. And that's where I kind of got on the radar of a few sponsors, and I signed with Hurley when I was a pretty young Grom. Mitchell Ross, who some people may know, worked with Carissa Moore. He was the team manager at Hurley, and he sort of was a mentor to me and put me on the path of that pro surfer kind of junior path. And that was the rest sort of took off from there, I guess.
It is amazing just because, I mean, all the figures you just listed, like, it's such a high concentration of elite surfing talent. Like, you go to the health food store and the person blending your smoothie is probably like the best surfer you've ever surfed with in your life. You got world champions and shapers and founders like Bugs. Like, they're all just there. Great waves. And then, I mean, I think for a lot of kids, like, moving there would have been intimidating, but it sounds like
absolutely.
You were okay though. Like, psychologically, I mean, were you always like really competitive, and did that help? I'm curious to understand how you made it work in such a high intensity environment.
Yeah, 100%. I always had a different type of motivation that sort of was always like, I'm a hard worker. In anything I do, even to this day, with the role I'm doing here in Abu Dhabi, but with the surf career, it was the same thing. Like, I saw these other kids, and they were better than me, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to work even harder to compete against them. And you're dead right. Like, there's so many great surfers on the Gold Coast, and even you know, your chippy carpenter mate that you got whacking a, you know, renovation in your house rips and gets 10-second barrels of Kira, and you know they're all the cream of the crop growing up of these guys, like, and it just uh, bred that mongrel in you, you know, and in me definitely. And that's how I adapted. Is at first I was a bit deer in headlights, like, whoa, like look at all these kids. They got Quicksilver and sponsors all over their boards, and they're paddling out, snapper behind the rock, and it was a bit daunting. But when I kind of got in that sort of friend group in that environment, it sort of kind of integrated well, and I guess I started sort of beating some of them, and there was that kind of, you know, respect, but also that kind of animosity. But it was just this, little melting pot of competitiveness, and for me, I just sort of thrived, I guess.
Who were some of your contemporaries that were kind of making the push to qualify in a similar age group? Give us some names.
Yeah, so my age group was Owen Wright. He was at the forefront in my age group. He pretty much decimated the ranks of the grommet events, and behind him there was a handful of surfers like Garrett Parks, and they were a bit younger than me, and you know, Stuart Kennedy and Davey Cathles, and these crew were sort of in the same sort of ballpark of my age, that we were all kind of neck and neck. And then below me was, or younger than me, was like Freestone and a couple of these other guys like Ryan Callanan, and those guys were kind of coming up behind us. But for me, it was sort of like Owen was definitely kind of, you know, well and truly at the forefront of our age bracket, and I was kind of behind him, winning everything that he didn't win. So, I kind of, you know, won the junior series in a bunch of events there, and got awfully close to a world junior title. And then, Owen qualified first out of us, and then I was the next one to kind of jump on tour out of that crew. So, I mean, it's funny because Owen was so much gnarlier than all of us, and we kind of, or at least I, maybe made it more of a reality for the other competitors that you can achieve making the tour. Because making the tour when I made it it just seemed like it was an unattainable task. Like the tour was so gnarly. Like it was when Mick, Joel, Kelly, Taj, Kersey, all those guys are at the top, and then in's coming like, Geordie as well, and then in's coming John, Idolo, Philippe, and they're all joining the tour, and then guys like me are just sort of in between, like you know, it was as gnarly as it gets. And so, you know, when I kind of, you know, had a pretty solid run, I had a pretty dream run on the QS where I was winning a bunch of stuff and took out a bunch of events, and I kind of smashed this one year. It made it an attainable thing for a lot of the other competitors that I grew up with, of like, hey, if Cruzy could do it, I guess, you know, we all can. And I guess in a way kind of inspired the crew that, you know, weren't like the Owens and stuff, that, you know, we could actually get to the tour and then make heats on tour. So, yeah.
I think you're being a little bit humble, but I take your point, because even some of those other folks that you named were like huge, high profile, like marketing industry darlings. Some of them never even made the tour. And I remember like being aware of you because it was like, hey, this guy's got this really good forehand, like carve, and he's fast, But you obviously came in without as much fanfare as some of the other megastars on tour. I remember being on the Gold Coast at your first event, it's at Snapper Rocks, and I joked about this before we recorded, but I'm like, this might be the only podcast this week where I've actually printed out your heat draw. But Heat 1, I'm going to read this out. An admirable second to Josh Kerr. It's not elimination heat, so no worries. Heat 2 took out Felipe Toledo. He goes on to win 2 world titles. Heat 3, and this is important in context for everyone because this was peak this surfer's golden child Australian marketing, full head of hair, scratching the surface had come out. He was meant to grab the torch from Mick and Joel and carry Australia into, 1,000-year sunrise or something. Julian Wilson. He also happened to be fellow Hurley team rider, so there was a ton of Hurley attention on Julian in this heat. Julian Wilson, 13.76. Mitch Cruz, 15.16 in round 3. I think, honestly, it was that heat for me and a bunch of others where I'm like, oh, man, like, Cruzy could do this. It was a pretty impressive debut showing on the CT.
So, yeah, that definitely event. I mean, it's my home break. First event on tour. I was, just terrified, and I qualified. I was young too. Like I was 23 years
like 23.
Old. Yeah,
super young. Yeah.
And a lot of that, I had just that. I'm just going to do whatever I can to kind of beat these guys, and that's sort of the mentality I took into that event. And I definitely wish I maintained that confidence throughout the year of the tour, because one thing I did learn was, I had to be so mentally strong, which I just was such a grom, and I just didn't have that, I guess, mongrel mentality to maintain it for a whole year. But that event in particular was just where I just wanted to showcase what I knew I could do, and it went well. And I got to, take down a few crew. But throughout the year, I was very kind of still, I guess, too green to do a whole year on tour and come up against these big names like Taj, who's my hero, and Mick, and I would have a heat where we'd have a really close heat, and I would believe I'd get the heat, but it kind of went in the favor of, like, I guess, a Mick or a Taj, and so be it. They've got it's safer bet to get, give them the nod. But those losses would just rattle you, especially when you're 20, 23. And I changed sponsor that year from Hurley, which was my, biggest support network at the time. And like you said, Hurley was, there was a lot of eyeballs when Nike and Hurley kind of merged and this mega team got built. And I jumped ship to Reef, where it was a bit more of a kind of glamorous travel kind of company. And that support network got taken away from me around events. And I kind of was just this grommet, kind of just traveling the world solo, just, getting slaughtered by these CT animals. So, but there was some cool moments for sure, and great heats and performances that I had that I'll never forget. But for definitely, I wish I had that kind of stronger mindset I got as I got older, and I got plagued by a few injuries, so I didn't really get the opportunity to give it another run. But yeah, that was, looking back on the tour, it was such a mental game, because you work so hard to get there, and you're like, yes, I've made it, and then you got to work twice as hard to stay there. So for me, it was a bit of a wake up call. But yeah, that snapper event in particular, I'll never forget it. It was running down in front of my friends and family. I remember just standing on the rock, jumping off behind the rock, going, I can't even believe I'm here in an event that I've watched since I was a little kid. And to go up against some of these guys and actually get the win was cool.
I totally remember the Hurley to Reef switch at the time too, because, and you're right, even those top names like, your Mick Fannings, your Joel Parkinsons, your Taj Burrows, your Kelly Slaters, they were traveling with, their own support network, but they were kind of the apex animals on the pyramid, and they could probably afford it, or their sponsors were funding it. You mentioned Hurley Nike's merger at the time, and you're right. Like, they had a ton of support crew that were kind of, I think, in a way, trying to give the young talent like a leveled advantage to like the kind of the Tajes and Micks and Kellys, et cetera. But also that was such a huge team when Nike and Hurley merged, and I've heard all sorts of stories about, the conversation at the Hawaii House where everyone got in the room and was told about it. But I'm happy to hear your version of it. But also, I'd imagine at some point you're like, look, if I don't have a role here, like, I better jump while I can. I'm not sure if that happened for you or not, but I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's what I did. And that day in the Hurley house, we're sitting there, the one in front of Pipe, just we got Simpo, Yaden, Ace, the kind of core Lord Hurley crew, and Paddy O'Connell, Walsh is in to the house, and big pizza night, big bunch of pizzas. In walks Julian, Kalohe, Michelle, Alejo, the whole Nike team just waltzed in. And, hey guys, meet your new Hurley team. And at the time it was like, wow, like, okay, for someone like me, I'm like, oh, as soon as this, this team is not sustainable. I mean, it's insane, but for someone like me, I was like, oh, well, I'd no doubt probably be one of the first to kind of go. But reflecting on it, though, I had such a great relationship with the crew at Hurley, with, Pat, and more particularly Brandon Gilmette, Mitchell Ross, and on the Gold Coast, I was sort of, so close with the brand. So, maybe in hindsight, it probably could have been cool to stay, and that support network was everything to me. They really assisted in my success. So, I just kind of, did that transition through the year and partnered with a brand that kind of, was going to support me financially and give me the opportunities to travel and stuff, and give me that security. But what I lost was that insane competitive environment like I grew up with, And
well, I mean, in a way, like, that team did get, like, it contracted, over time, as you pointed out, like exactly what you mentioned happened. And, heat check me on this if I'm wrong, but I kind of vividly remember, I know you had a few injuries, but like Reef also seemed like a good fit for a while because they were seeming like they were really supporting your free surfing endeavors too, which was always awesome to see you do that.
Yeah, I was never, a free surfy dude at all. I mean, my surfing wasn't the prettiest to watch, but it got better as I got older. It got less, my style seemed to improve better as I got older.
Why do you think that is?
I think I just, my maturity changed, in the way I approached waves was differently. Like when I was younger, I didn't care how I looked. I needed to go 110% on every turn and go as fast as I could. And it didn't look pretty. And as I sort of got older, I kind of want to draw turns out a little more and hold bottom turns longer and, shuffle my feet around and get a bit more like conscious of how I was riding waves. And that I reflected on my footage and as Reef got to take us on some insane trips, like they had that just passing through kind of era where we were going to, places in Mexico that had never been surfed and, weird islands and things like that. And so that kind of gave me an opportunity to explore that free surfing element and do some video stuff and, clips, which was really, really cool. And especially when I got off tour, that was a lot of my time as well, where I'd like focus on putting some edits or videos out. I mean, ultimately I was a competitor and that's all I was doing. And that's all I really was bred to do, I guess. And, those injuries kind of were a bit of a setback, but, I mean, it was cool to be able to kind of have one foot in one park and one foot in the other for a bit there.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen the footage. You're still surfing at an elite level. We can talk about CT wildcards on another podcast. But point being, like, at some point, it seems like you maybe made a conscious decision saying, all right, like the professional surfing thing of, trying to get onto the CT or stay on the CT or, surf for sponsors or a lot of sponsors, free surfing is my only career. I'm going to have to move on from that.
Yeah.
Was there a moment? Was it a gradual process? And when you did, what did you try next?
Yeah, I kind of read the room. I was still traveling, uh, around doing events and still had some support from sponsors and whatnot. But one thing I never wanted to do was just hold on to. I never wanted to go past my expiry date, if that makes sense. And not that I think I was expired, but I definitely around that COVID time, I sort of was like, hey, the industry landscape's changing. Flying to these places is not as cheap as it used to be. Things were just changing a little bit, and I kind of reflected on my career and accolades, and I was at peace with what I'd done, and my relationship with surfing was very authentic, and I was really loving it, just for surfing rather than doing it to please people. And I just kind of went like, this is probably a great time to just wrap things up and really focus on my next chapter and transitioning into the workforce and striving to building my life away from surfing, because you kind of attach your identity to surfing, and everyone does, and you're going to go through a who am I moment when you sort of hang up the surf boots and you want to that I went through that, but luckily I had learned a lot from surfing and just managing myself through my career. And then I actually opened a cafe business and had an opportunity to run a small business for a few years and learn a lot from that. And I got to, had people around me that worked in the industry that I learned a lot about, and really try to put myself forward in the industry. And I tangled with many things and did partnerships with beer companies and worked in there and did that. I even worked on the tools for a bit and just sort of just doing whatever, I guess. And it was really an amazing moment of where you really feel like this weird freedom of like disattaching from surfing and like meeting people of like from all other industries and walks of life. And it's like this empowering moment, which I really felt really cool. And I think maybe some other surfers might say the same thing where, when you do go from being a professional surfer and people know who you are and this sort of stuff, and then it ends, it's like a very strange feeling, because like you don't have those university certificates, you don't have those internships that you might do at a company. You're kind of just leaving school almost. And but fortunately the sport of surfing, you get to make so many relationships, and you learn street smarts on the road, that you learn valuable skills and business skills, I guess, which kind of can propel you into roles, not even really in the industry as such, but outside of, the surf industry. So yeah, I kind of, just, I was comfortable. I was motivated, just like I was in my surf career, to rip in and build, this incredible kind of life and work future, but also most importantly, just have fun and enjoy life outside of being an athlete, I guess.
I've heard this from a few other surfers. I've experienced it. You and I are at the opposite ends of the spectrum, probably not even on the same spectrum, but you talked about detachment and you mentioned the style point before, but I've even heard from surfers, and I've sort of seen the evidence too, whether it's video or otherwise, of if they're detaching, they're not really surfing as much as they used to, where it was like before, it's like any day, every day, like I'll blow all this time on tide and sandbar and wind, I get my waves, etc. They take a step back and they go, I can only surf, once this week or maybe twice next week or once in 2 weeks. When it suits them, they're surfing better sometimes, and I think it's just that detachment, maybe just not like chasing it as much as you used to think you had to.
Yeah, and it goes back to that pressure thing. When the pressure's off, you just relax into the way you want to surf. And also, you don't have to ride a 3-fin high-performance shortboard. You can jump on a 20 and a little fish board and ride different boards, and the pressure's gone. And yeah, I mean, you're dead right. Like, doing some of the better surfing of your life once you kind of hang the rashy up and just enjoying it, and for me, moving to the Middle East here in Abu Dhabi, where ocean waves has been taken away from me.
Right.
I only surf a man-made wave pool. That's my local grade. My love and passion and attachment to surfing will never go away. And the itch and love for the sport, I'm dying to get back in the ocean I just want to go paddle and get a set on the head. Like, all those things have been kind of taken away from me, but that love, gets elevated once you, hang it up. And some people, maybe some people actually just, I'm kind of done with surfing and pick up a golf club or something and go down that path. But for me, I'll definitely always love the sport. I mean, that's why surfing's so unique, is it'll grab hold of you and take you till the day you die. It's just such an addictive kind of thing.
Well, if we see you floating around in the impact zone during the Surf Abu Dhabi Pro, we'll be like, he misses getting hit with a wave. Like, he's doing his best. Okay, so I really appreciate that insight and just the candor, about the post-professional surfing career. But how did the senior director of surf activities of the surf experience at Surf Abu Dhabi, how'd that phone call happen for you?
We had some, it came from Alana Blanchard, actually. She had some connections and relationships at the surf ranch, and my name had sort of been floated around with some of the crew. They were looking for someone who had some business experience and running my cafe, but I'd also, I guess, walked the walk on the competitive, path and been a professional surfer. And they threw my hat in the mix. A couple of the guys from the ranch connected me with my boss now, who's Ryan Watkins. He's the general manager of Surf Abu Dhabi. Great bloke, South African fella, and the team here at Surf Abu Dhabi, they're all amazing crew. And we just got on the phone and had a chat about the role and what I'd been tasked with, and it was pretty much in my wheelhouse. And I think, to be honest, like, I'm sort of built for this stuff. Like, I'm a bit of a character and a outgoing person, so hospitality is kind of in my wheelhouse. Basically the chat was like, hey, what do you think about coming to Abu Dhabi to be a part of this project? And I was a bit like, whoa, I never thought I'd hear those words come at me. And I was on a flight a month later and arrived here in this behemoth of a facility and just draw on the ground going, wow. And the next, year was building the surf team and recruiting these amazing kind of, characters we have here as the, Surf Abu Dhabi surf team, and building the water safety team and building the coaches and running the experience. And now, it's 60 of them and we're just this sick little family out here in the desert. And it's just been a wild journey and experience. But that's sort of how I ended up in this place, to be honest. It was a very unexpected phone call.
Before we close out this segment, I want to talk about, I think Alex is your younger brother, if I remember right. World-class board builder. Yeah, his own label, Axod Surfboards. I think he's doing stuff with DH now.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about you brothers' relationship,
Yeah.
riding his boards at the highest levels of surfing, and also just what you guys are up to now. What boards do you ride when you're out there?
Yeah, so yeah, Alex, some people may know his brand, Axod. He's probably one of the best up and coming Australian shapers. He's been in the game for a while. He's, shaped boards for some of the best as well. And his project Axod is he's got a creative approach on high performance surfboards. But Darren Hanley, who I rode boards with as well, they kind of had a pretty good relationship, and Darren kind of was like, hey, can you come across and sort of jump on board? And Alex is, if for people who may have met Alex in the past, he's a great guy, very charismatic dude, and the life of the party, but very creative. He's sort of the opposite of me, where I'm very not creative and sporty, and he's super creative and probably less sporty. Still rips though. He's sort of, working alongside Darren now. And for me, I've been riding all sorts of weird boards. I mean, I still get his boards, whether it's an Axod logo or a DHD logo. I've got a couple DHDs here. I've got this Nexus board, this little groveler board, and I've got a little fish 20 thing that I've been riding, and this 2+1. And I mean, it's a rabbit hole of boards I've been riding, but yeah, I still sort of stay true to my brother's crafts. And then I've actually got another younger brother, Tom. His name's Tom Cruise, actually. He's works with Billabong and makes a lot of their films. So we're a bit of a melting pot of surf brothers that kind of, I was so fortunate to have them as my best mates and collaborate weirdly, where Tom would film and Alex would shape the boards and I would surf. So, a great relationship, and super proud of them. Definitely.
I love it. We're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back, we will wrap up our conversation with Mitch Cruz. All right, we're back. This is the Lineup Podcast. I'm Dave Prodan. I'm here with Mitch Cruz. Mitch, I was so stoked we got to have this conversation and hear about where you're at, and obviously your background, and having been a fan and a friend for so many years. I mentioned this to Mitch Salazar on, I think, the last episode, of like scheduling Pipeline and Surf Abu Dhabi back to back. You probably couldn't have more, diametrically opposed wave types or wave experiences on tour. But I wonder too, and I haven't been there, and you've been there for a little over a year, but the East Coast of Australia, the Gold Coast, culturally, and then the United Arab Emirates, like what's been your experience like over there outside of work and outside of the pool?
Well, you're dead right. Like I guess you could say I'm a diehard Aussie bogan that got dropped in the Middle East, and culturally, I mean, there's nothing other way to put it. It was a massive shock. Me and my partner, we both moved out here together, and you get hit in the face with, they're very, the Emirati and UAE culture, it's actually something I admire. They really are, they're very passionate and very, dedicated to their history and their leaders. And it's something that I really admire. And that was a bit of getting used to. And, their traditions, they will stay true to their traditions. Obviously, religion's a monster part here in a Muslim country. But here in the UAE, as I've adapted over the years, is it's been, it really does feel like home now. From the Emirati local community to the expat community, everyone is so welcoming, and it's something that I've just, it's kind of blown me away. And massive change in lifestyle, massive like driving down the coast and surfing, down the beach with no one around with trees and stuff has turned into hanging out the beach by mega cities or going to the desert and things like that. So it just in my lifetime I never thought I would be in this position, but the short of it is it's really feels like home now, and that's awesome.
I had a peek at the Surf Abu Dhabi website to see if there were prices, and there were. And I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I was surprised actually. I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression, but I would go check it out if you're interested there. And it does. It's the reason the prices surprised me a little bit is because it does seem like the number one premium hospitality wave experience on the planet. And it's not me being hyperbolic. That's just all the vision that you see. Like, these are the best waves. This seems like the best sort of hospitality component to it. I'd imagine you've had some pretty high profile clients there already. Like, is there anyone that's sort of blown you away? Like, within the surfing world, of course, but maybe outside the surfing world.
Yeah, I mean, like it's sort of it's kind of a normal occasion for us here now. The very high net worth individuals and celebs that they love surfing just like you and I. We do have a fair few visitors. A lot of the F1 drivers and things like that, and because we got the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix here, and a bunch of.
Can you tell us which one's the best surfer? Is that like an NDA deal?
No, I mean Lewis Hamilton was surfing pretty good. Like he's come a few times and he's pretty good. Lance Stroll did really well. I mean they're all kind of pretty surprisingly good. They were surfing our best profile, which was the competition wave pretty much. So, but yeah, I mean we've had a lot of these A-list celebs come through, and Chris Hemsworth is he's one of the Aussie boys. He's been here a few times and he grips the thing. Just man hacks. So yeah, we have a lot of those kind of big names. But for me, going back to sort of the pricing thing is we really do want to make this attainable for every person. Maybe some crew might balk at the price, but once you've come through the doors, like this is not just going to a water park, you're getting taken on a first class surfing experience. And it's a new form of surf trip. It's like high level elite surfing hospitality. And that's what you get. Not only do you get this perfect wave, which it is perfect, it'll blow for the people that I've seen come through the door and get to surf this thing. It really is that kind of life-changing sort of wave. And that's what we're doing here. And for me, I just want to make it accessible and give people the golden ticket to surf this mythical beast. And this might sound arrogant, and this is not knocking other wave pools because they're all so awesome, but we kind of are the crown jewel right now of wave pools, not only because of the wave, but because of the facility. And there's no real other way to describe it until you're here on site, see it for yourself. But for me, I really do encourage people to come and experience it, and I get that kick out of seeing the guy who's rustled up his coin and flown here to give it a crack, and then they're just like shaking of happiness when they've surfed it, and that gives me more froth really than. I mean, it's great having the celebs and stuff here. We love it, but the everyman is what froths me out the most.
Well, and then the funny thing around the few celebs that I've been around too is like they geek out when the CT surfers are there.
Yeah.
They're like, oh wow, oh my god.
For sure.
Well, it's interesting, man. Like, so how long? Like, is this? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot and have your bosses freak out or anything, but like, do you see this as like a long-term gig for you? Like how long do you see yourself in the region for?
Good question. I've got no idea. Right now, I'm very emotionally attached to what we've built here. I've put my heart and soul into this place. My team are, very special to me. They've become really good friends, and for now we're just only an embryo. We're very small, very early days for Surf Abu Dhabi. I think this is going to turn into something amazing, and I'm going to ride this train for a while. So I don't necessarily think I'll be wrapping it up anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, I'm a surfer and I need ocean waves. So I'll be living by the beach somewhere there where there's a right rip bowl, I think, like down the track. I don't know if I could surf a mechanical wave for the rest of my days.
I like it. I like it. Well, they're lucky to have you right now, man, and we're so fortunate that you spent so much time talking to us. We did put out a feeler for some questions from the Instagram community at the Lineup Pod. We got a bunch back for you, but we've whittled it down to 3. First question is from First question is from @santo.ricardo, who asks, "What is the best board for Surf Abu Dhabi, epoxy or PU?"
Very good question. It's personal preference, but because it's salt water, I believe it's PU. I think the buoyancy of the salt water makes epoxies can feel slightly overpowered by the wave. There is a lot of energy in the wave, and a PU tends to sit on the water quite comfortably, like in the ocean. I personally like PUs better. But it's personal preference for some. Some people love that responsiveness of an epoxy on the wave, and we do have a range of epoxies here that really have been quite a hit. So yeah, for me, I would say PU, but if you're a diehard epoxy fan, they can still work as well.
I like it. Second question is from @TreeHatJ, who asks, I didn't know we kind of talked about this, but I don't want to know. Question: which surfer was most upset by the Nike Hurley merger?
That's funny. Wow. Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, we were all baffled.
Right.
I think no one visibly.
No one threw a pizza against the wall, nothing like that.
Oh, we were all awkwardly sharing pizza.
Right.
I think no. I mean, everyone was just a bit baffled by it. To be honest, no one was like vocally kind of off it, but I mean, everyone deep down was just like, wow. They said we were going to be the Los Angeles Lakers of surfing, which is pretty crazy at the time, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, that Nike Hurley era was amazing. They looked after us so well. Like, I mean, that was when we were, that was the pinnacle for a moment there when you got the big dog Nike involved in sport. Looks like they're back in with Italo and Sierra, which is cool.
Yeah, totally. They hover. They're like one of those long-distant orbiting planets that come back every few years. Have a sniff at it. So, see how it goes. I like the answer, though. Third question is from @Corey James Walker, who asks, "Do you want a wild card?" I'm assuming he means to the Surf Abu Dhabi wave, but
a wild card for me.
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
he's seen your edits, yeah, or they've seen your edits.
No, for me, I'm so neck deep in the operations and work element now that I mean, it just is so far fetched for me to put a rashie on. As much as cool as it would be, I won't be getting in the pool. I mean. The wild cards we've got are awesome. Like I said, Mateus Hurdy, he blew my mind yesterday. So it's I think Mateus Hurdy will be more exciting to watch than a kind of washed up pool boy office pod like myself. But no, I think it's going to be awesome with the wild cards we got. I would never want to take an opportunity away from the up and coming crew that really grind it,
Humble as always. I would like to see you surf as well, though, Mitch. Thanks to everyone who wrote in at the Lineup Pod. We are now down to the lightning round. This is our final round. There are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can. If you could only have one board setup for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad, bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
2+1.
I like it. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Big time.
Burrito or pizza?
Burrito, I think. I've been gobbling up too many at the moment. I could see it swelling my body up.
Last book you read?
I'm reading Dune again from the movie. Okay. So I'm reading that right now just because I've just been so frothing on the movie. So yeah, I mean I'm pretty much finished, so it'd be Dune.
They're good, huh? Have you read all the books before?
I've only read the first two, but I'm rereading it again because I just love sci-fi. I mean, the movies are insane. Yeah. So yeah, tapping into the book good. Again.
Next question: best surf film ever?
Oh man, it's a hard one. I mean, the best surf film ever. I mean, Modern Collective for me was a massive shift. Was when Kai Neville just come out of nowhere and just made this film with the best free surfers in the world. Some of them were my friends. And I think for me, I pulverized that film was so much over the years. It was a bit of a pivotal film, I think. So I'd probably say Modern Collective by Kai Neville.
Good answer. What is one wave you never have to go back to?
Never have to go back to. Interesting. Michael Dunphy will hate me for this, but I'll probably say Virginia Beach. I love the crew there. The boys from the town of Virginia, they're the biggest legends, but I just never, ever have surfed a decent wave at Virginia Beach. I think I'll probably never go back to surf there, at least. I'll definitely visit friends, but not that wave. I do not think I'll need to surf again.
You've experienced it. That's fair enough.
No offense, guys.
If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life and you can dream cast it, just perfect conditions, just you and your friends, what wave would it be?
It would be Angari Point in Yamba. I think it's by far one of my most favourite waves. And if I had to die old with that wave out front of my house, I'd be a happy man.
Best person to share a lineup with?
Oh man, I think I don't know why that my first thought come to mind was Ryan Callanan. I think me and Ryan we've scored some really memorable sessions together, and I just think that just unlocked core memories in me. So yeah, I guess maybe Ryan would be a good one. But yeah, my brothers also too. I love surfing with my brothers.
Worst person to share a lineup with?
Oh, that's hard. Oh, I'm not sure. Hey, anybody out Snapper, pretty much. It's just a melting pot out there. It's dog eat dog. Probably behind the rock Snapper boys, even though the local boys, even though we're all get shared, it's so dog eat dog.
All right, last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by...
I will next achieve a state of happiness by... Yeah, I guess enjoying myself in the moment. For me, here in the UAE has been a massive life change and presented so many new opportunities. And day by day, it's been something I wake up and be grateful that I get to have these new experiences after the surf journey I went on. So, yeah, just I guess living in the moment is just would be mine, as cliche as it may sound.
I think that's a great answer. I think that's a great way to end. Mitch Cruz, thank you so much for coming on the lineup, man. And just for your insights and your candor and your stories. And congratulations on everything you've achieved. And congrats on where you're at, man. I think that's awesome.
Appreciate it, mate. Thanks for having me. And we'll start the day here at the pool. We've got practice day 3 for the comp. So, yeah, I'll go and see who's ripping and tune in for the event, I guess.